I've probably said this before, but like Bill, I'm a slow learner and I need repetition. So I think I've mentioned that I have this print hanging on my wall here that has a saying on it. It says, anyone can slay a dragon, he told me, but try waking up every morning and loving the world all over again. That's what takes a real hero. Boy, and this past week, did that effort feel more than heroic and more than I often felt up to love and have compassion for the world and the whole scope of people in this world, not to mention just compassion for myself and those close to me. These days, it can all be for me especially challenging. Listening to the news presents new challenges on a daily, if not hourly basis. At the beginning of last week, I found myself feeling really shut down, tuned out, disconnected, and as Lee talked about last week, going into numbness. How do I not give in to aversion and hatred when my heart shatters, as Catherine described, and is confronted by the devastatingly harmful actions of others on so many fields and on so many levels? How do I not give up on all of humanity when we can behave so monstrously and so hurtfully, and when it seems as if I am helpless in the face of it all? Even my go-to solution for so many things, going for walks and seeing the woods becoming greener, the red buds blooming, even that didn't warm my heart as it usually does. Fortunately, because of this practice, I could recognize at least and note it. As Susan always suggests to us, see it, note it. There you are. There you are, my disconnect. There you are, my numbing. I see you. And the accompanying doubt, doubting myself, doubt, there you are, telling me, maybe you can't get this. Maybe you're not doing it right. All those self-doubting statements. And what I did realize by noting that pain, that doubt, that disconnect, was that I really needed refuge. I needed more comfort and more refuge, not less, to find some uplift, as it seemed that my internal supply was running woefully short. And we can do all this. We can take refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and remember to do that. I certainly took refuge in our Sangha and heard the words of comfort and wisdom shared by David and Lee last week. I appreciated knowing I was not alone in my numbing, and truly was grateful for any toys, tidbits of insight, as David mentioned, and encouraged us to remember the strong back of compassion in just being persistent and committed to the practice, not efforting, not heroically striving or grasping, just keeping on with it. Taking refuge in the Dharma and being open to those tidbits of information. I picked up a book that I had bought some time ago and hadn't read. And I don't want to be offensive, so I'll show the title. I don't know if you can see it, but the title is How to Stay Human in an Effed Up World, Mindfulness Practices for Real Life by Tim Desmond. And those folks who may know me know that language really resonates with me. Even the title gave me some hope. It certainly resonated with a frankly honest, this is where I'm at position, no mincing of words. This seemed absolutely perfect to help me respond to my distress and my disconnect and develop a different relationship with the pain I was feeling, honoring it, being more interested, leaning towards, but not attaching to it, using wise intention and wise effort to keep my heart open to all beings, and not just giving into aversion of wanting to push it all away. This gave me some hope. Seeing and loving life as it is really in these days is no picnic. In reading this book, a statement made by the author really stood out to me. And to paraphrase a bit, he says, human beings always want to make choices that serve their well-being in life and lead to less suffering. And this next part really grabbed me. However, we usually don't know how to do that. I had heard the first part before. Okay, we want to be happy and suffer less. I get it. But it really made sense to me that we really don't often know how to go about that. Instead, we do the best we can based on our imperfect, limited models of how the world works. You know, neuroscience tells us that our brains are designed to build models for us of the world to help us navigate what the world is about and help us survive, to notice dangers, to avoid dangers, to survive those dangers and continue on with our lives. That's what our brains are meant to do, to keep us safe and suffer less. But our models are based on our limited experience, so they're imperfect. And even if that experience is our hereditary experience of inheriting our ancestors' learnings, as imperfect as those were. And some of our maps may be like those old ancient maps where the unknown appeared. It would be there be monsters that elicit our fears and warnings of dangers, whether they're really there or not. So we have to appreciate that our maps are the best we got, but they're not perfect. And this reminded me of a statement that Desmond Tutu made in his book, The Book of Forgiving, and I'll post those in a minute. He says that people are not born hating each other and wishing to cause harm. It's a learned condition, even if this comes from some inherited predisposition. He goes on to say, children do not dream of growing up to be murderers, and yet every murderer was once a child. There are times, he says, when he looks at someone who's considered or described as a monster, and he can honestly believe, but for the grace of God, go I. Or perhaps in more Buddhist terms, there, but for all of our causes and conditions, go I. These statements from Bishop Tutu and Tim Desmond began to let my heart soften to all those who I saw as causing pain and harm. Tim Desmond used the analogy of a moth. When we see a moth flying into a flame, we think, oh, that must have some survival value, some purpose for them. They don't mean to destroy their lives, and we hypothesize that, gee, light must be a tool to their navigation, and they just get really confused by artificial lights. Their imperfect map of a world that doesn't include artificial light. So at least I can give human beings perhaps that same consideration, that what we choose to do, we do in order that we think it'll help us survive and flourish. And it's based on a map that doesn't include that this could be harmful and dangerous to ourselves and others. So as my heart began to soften a bit, I also took refuge in the Buddha. I imagined the Buddha as a benefactor, along with Kuan Yin and Thich Nhat Hanh. And the four of us would go on walks. I would bring them on my morning walk each morning. And I practiced the phrases. Just like me, this person was a vulnerable child needing to be loved and cared for. Just like me, this person wants to be well and suffer less. Just like me, this person doesn't always know how to do this. Just like me, this person is guided by an imperfect map of the world created by their limited experiences. As I practiced these phrases each day, I checked in to see how they were landing in my body and in my heart. I could feel the opening, the unknotting, the warmth coming back into my heart. There was sadness and tears there for the pain of the world and the pain of all beings, even and perhaps especially those who were creating the harm, and I now recognized were also suffering so greatly. I realized they didn't know how to stop, and I could not stop them, but I could bear witness with, as David putting, that strong back and soft front of compassion. There was deep warmth and love for the world again. The sprouting May apples and the red buds brought delight again and wonder, combined with a new poignancy for their impermanence and their presence in the world along with the pain and suffering of the world. I realized even the Buddha was not able to change and eliminate all suffering from the world, but he could be present to help me keep my heart open and be present to and love the world without having to fix it or making it be anything other than what it is. Thank you for being present with me.